This podcast is brought to you by Kiwi Design, the leader in MetaQuest and VR accessories. And now you can deck out your device while supporting the podcast. The MetaQuest 2 is a great headset, but do you ever feel things could be a bit more comfortable? Well, we have the solution for you. With lens protectors, controller grips, face covers, head straps, link cables, headset stands, and more, including my two personal favorites, the top version controller grips with added weight and an extended handle, and the Kiwi upgraded Elite strap. Let's be real, we've all whacked our controller. Don't be the guy messaging Oculus support for your own mistake or waiting weeks for an out-of-stock controller. Visit the link in our show notes to prepare yourself today. After visiting the link in our show notes, make sure to use the promo code Ruff Talk VR at checkout, all one word, to take full advantage of your savings. And make sure to click the link in our show notes so the podcast gets credit and you help support us. Remember, whatever you need, Kiwi has you covered. Hey, welcome to this episode of Ruff Talk VR. We got a fun one today.
Yeah,
today we're joined
never
with...
a dull moment.
No, I always love the variety of guests we get on this podcast, whether it's community managers, the developers themselves, and I always love talking with fellow VR content creators, and we got two good ones today. Both, so they've formed a podcast together called VR and All That Jazz. I'm sure they'll explain the name behind it as well, but today we're joined with VR with Jasmine and AtomBombBody. So I think you two can introduce yourselves much better than I can. So do you want to introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners, and then we can talk a little bit more about what you two do in your podcast that you just started as well?
Who are we going first? Are we going to draw straws?
You can go first, Adam.
Okay, I guess we'll go alphabetical then. So I am one of the Jasmines, one of the jazzes of VR and All That Jazz, although to differentiate, to make it easier, usually I go by Adam, and then Jazz gets to keep her official name. But I started off just doing regular Twitch streams many, many years ago, like flat screen. I heard about this cool thing called Twitch. I wanted to make money playing video games and all that. Eventually, I found VR through Half-Life Alyx, and I wanted to be able to stream that, and I had no idea, like, how do you stream VR? How do you take the thing that's on your face and put it on the screen? And so after going through a lot of different YouTube videos and finding sort of bits and pieces from different tutorials, I figured it out, but eventually I started my YouTube channel with the intent of, like, if I'm having trouble trying to figure out how to record and live stream VR, I'm sure others are too. So I started posting tutorials that way. Eventually I found Live, and I started making tutorials not for them, but of their software, the VR capture software. Long story short, I got eventually hired. I got picked up as community manager, later got promoted to product marketing, and the rest is pretty much history as far as me and company wide. But it's crazy. It's crazy how it goes, I think. But Jazz has a lot more of an interesting story, in my opinion.
I think everyone's story is interesting at the end of it, but no, that's a good story. All right, I'm anxious for the next one.
My background is so similar to yours, Adam. I mean, my real background's in like robotics and mechanical engineering, and I worked in the tech industry for a while, but outside of that, during the pandemic, I started streaming on Twitch, same as Adam, mostly because I was so bored and I just wanted some human interaction. Also, I couldn't go to the gym, so I was like, I'm playing Beat Saber every day anyway. Maybe I'll just do something with it. Similar to Adam, I got a bunch of questions like, what are you doing? What is that on your face? How are you doing this? So after answering the same questions over and over, I started a YouTube channel similar to Adam, but instead of doing like mixed reality tutorials, I started doing like really basics of VR tutorials. Like, what is VR? Like, what's happening here? And just really getting people like the baby steps into the VR industry. So, after doing YouTube for a while, I was like, you know what? I really just want to see if I had more time to go all in on content, all in on VR, like what would that look like? So about a year ago, like May of last year, I quit my job in tech, which was really hard to do. And I was only making $300 a month at the time doing content. So, and which hasn't changed by much, by the way. But in the process of leaving something else, I was able to have more time to try different things, work more in the VR industry, do some marketing for like consulting marketing for some people. I worked at Andromeda Entertainment for a little bit. They are the publishers for Audio Trip. And then eventually, through hanging out with like Skiva and Eric, we realized, man, there really is so many great VR games. And I'm sure anyone that's in the VR industry knows like there's so many good ones that like, why doesn't anybody know about this? And from that, we're like, we need to be the hype people for like these games. We need to show these developers, like if you worked really hard on an amazing like app or game or product or whatever, everyone needs to know about it. And that's kind of how we started with Impact, which is where I work full time now. Impact Reality, our PR and marketing company for VR specific.
Well, what I love about this is both of you discovered VR, started to go into the content creation side as a hobby, and quickly made it a career. So that's a great story to hear. And so what year for Adam, what year did you start working with Liv for the live streaming?
I want to say, well, when I got hired on as community manager, I want to say that was like maybe 2.5, almost 3 years ago now. A lot's changed because it's, you know, small startup company, but yeah, it's been interesting to be sort of on the other side of like an actual company, because as a content creator, you kind of get give me the stuff I need something that I can record and showcase. But when you get to the other side of like, oh, you know, this is why you can't necessarily share things because things aren't always ready and you want to make sure the public has a certain perception of your thing, then I'm like, oh, I get it now. I get why some companies are kind of like either, you know, make delays or have a very particular way that they want their thing to be said. So, but on the flip side, I could also bring, hey, these are what creators kind of want when it comes to a product. Probably Jazz can relate too, especially because that's her whole company now, is like you can represent the creator side. And no offense to like developers or anything out there, but sometimes they don't really have that marketing brain. So they kind of need to be not necessarily taught, maybe educated on, hey, these are, you know, you don't have to have these steps, but these steps are going to help so much more in getting your game, your product, whatever it is out there. So it's nice. It's been nice being able to see both sides, and I'm very grateful.
Well, that's something we talk about quite a bit, that
pretty much any chance we can.
Yeah, it's like, of course, I'm sure every developer would love to have a community manager, and sometimes it's just a financial side, the reason they don't, but sometimes developers are oddly against it, and it's like the reality is, both for the marketing and for the community management, as the creator of the art itself, being the video game, or the cinema or whatever, you probably shouldn't be the one filtering out criticisms and dealing with stuff. You know, it's very tough for somebody to read, you know, even if it's 90% positive and 1% negative, the human brain's going to focus on that, you know, 10% negative most of the time. So I think it's important for developers to have somebody else doing the community management, somebody else doing the marketing. You know, you the one creating it, I don't know if you're the best person to get that involved in it, because you're too emotionally attached to it, you know? So
someone's judging your baby. Yeah. And then it's like, because you have to have someone to filter out the difference between boo, you suck, yes, which is not, you know, like whatever. That's
not productive.
Yeah, exactly. Versus like, oh, I wish this level had XYZ. You need someone to be able to filter out the stuff that actually matters from the trolls or just random crap, because there's a lot of crap out there.
And that extends to what Jasmine is doing with Impact Reality as well. You know, sit there.
Who is nominated for an award?
Yeah,
yeah.
We should mention that, a VR
just to
award.
Put it out there, you know.
Yeah, well, they're crushing it. You know, you go on the Impact Reality website, you see some of the top games that they're working on, including, or not working on, but working with, including one of our favorites, Ghost of Tabor.
Ghost of Tabor. I
mean, you're crushing it, and the client list is only growing, so there's clearly a need for that. And yeah, I think that's a great side of the industry, is the marketing and the press. And yeah, developers shouldn't be the one doing it. So Jasmine, do you want to tell us a little bit more about, you know, Impact Reality and the marketing and the press that you do for these studios?
Sure. So yeah, so we're finalists for the VR Awards, which was crazy. I nearly cried. I alerted everybody in the company. I was like, meeting now. And when they joined the meeting, they said, Jasmine, maybe you should preface it next time to say that it's a good thing, because like, what the heck's happening?
Emergency.
Yeah, but Rising VR Company of the Year, which is so exciting. Let's see. So you asked about what we do in terms of PR and marketing. Really, it's all across the board, and it's very specific to the game, which I think is the complicated part. So if you hire like a marketing team that's used to working on flat games, it just doesn't translate the same in the VR industry. First, like even if they did a media push, usually they won't even have all the VR outlets that you're used to seeing. Or if they do a media push and they write a press release, the press release doesn't explain what people that care about VR actually care about. So there's or it just might go out to a completely, not the same audience, but it's really anywhere from working on the press release, working with influencers, trying to figure out like their social media strategy, like if any, what if, sometimes you do a TikTok takeover, and we just run that whole thing for them. We've done like PR boxes, we've done live events like Ghost of Tabor's launch party. Really, it really depends on the game. And yeah, it takes like people who love the game or love VR in general, and also people who love. Wait, what did I say? It takes people who love like VR and understand the game and understand the space and understand what people are looking for, where the community is hanging out, especially like who their target audience might be to like strategize on a plan on like how do we find the people that really would resonate with your game. How do we find them and show them that like, hey, there is a game that you would probably really love, and here it is.
So
Well, I think the service overall is going to continue to grow rapidly as the industry now is going to become even more popular once I think the Quest 3 drops, and you guys are crushing it. So something to feel proud of, being nominated for awards so quickly. Mm-hmm. And the games that you all have are all really good games. So
yeah,
you can tell that the vetting process is pretty legit.
Yeah, you're not just grabbing anything. It's like the games that you align with. It's games that you also seem to believe in. So that's,
and I'm quite sure other developers are watching closely to see how it plays out for these, because again, it's an area that might not have has been important, 2 years ago, whereas today it's like you better have a marketing campaign.
Yeah, putting a game out on App Lab doesn't mean success, but I'm sorry to cut you off. Keep going there.
Oh, I was going to say, I'd argue too that if they are, a small, maybe indie dev or a very small team, it's probably going to be cheaper hiring a company like Impact Reality than, having a full-time staff member on for, I don't know, years and years or whatever the company's budget might be. So I think it's super smart. I'm like, oh man, such a great idea. I nerd out over marketing and PR and all that stuff. So when she first announced the company, I was like, oh, that's like a perfect thing what we need right now for VR games and all these, small indie devs.
I will say it's definitely agreed. It's definitely cheaper than hiring a full team, especially because usually during launches, it's very seasonal. So you'll have a launch and then things will eventually die down. Then maybe you'll need another push or something. So it doesn't really make sense to hire someone or a whole team just to get rid of them. So, but yeah, thanks. It's the vetting process that you said, gosh, that part's so tough because one, we're such a new company. We want to take as much as we can. We want to help, first intrinsically, we want to help as many people as we possibly can because we just love the VR industry. But then also as a new company, we're like, well, we really need to make sure that we're able to make ends meet every single month. But at the same time, you don't want to just take anything because if you take anything and it doesn't work out, then you just feel bad first that for that, but then also just doesn't look great. So it's running a business is really hard.
Well, and I'll fall that into everyone who works there actually has not just they enjoy VR, they have the passion for it. So it's like you have that kind of collaboration that can make a decision on a product. You all will know whether it's it's posed for success or it's just not at that level right now. So I mean I totally get it.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at your roster of games, it's not one consistent genre the whole way through, nothing but shooters. It's so diverse, the type of games that you work with. So I love that. And that's probably because you have, a couple different people on the team, all with a lot of different connections and VR experience. Everybody has a different cup of tea.
And the passion.
Yes. And the passion.
You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't love it and have passion for it, it's not gonna show.
So for you two personally, what are each of your favorite type of games? Are you more of a rhythm game fan, shooters? What really gets you going when you put on a VR headset?
For me, we don't see a lot of my favorite genre. Like I can tell you what I want to see more of. I want to see more survival crafting games in VR. We've kind of had some that scratch the itch a little, but haven't been perfect. I guess because it's so hard to make such a big, world that's needed for it. But like we've had Green Hell VR. There's the prehistoric one that's slipping my mind that I still have to play. Well, no, that one's not out yet.
You're thinking about Primal Hunt?
Yeah.
No. It came out on the PSVR 2. Was one of the first PSVR 2 launch titles. Shoot, why can't I think of it? What was it?
Horizon?
No. Anyway, I can't think of it. It's kind of a trippy survival, sort of a prehistoric game that came out. Once I find it, you'll all be like, oh. But yeah, I want to see more survival crafting games in VR. I guess sort of close is maybe Garden of the Sea. It's not really survival, though. That's more just cute crafting. But I'm a sucker for that stuff. I just love being able to craft and make something my own. So to be able to bring that into VR and getting to, pet the animals, of course, is always a bonus. But probably second would be rhythm games. But I feel like we have to be really careful because there's so many now. And so
there might be a few.
There might be a few. So like any new rhythm game that comes out, you have to differentiate from the other ones and not just be like sticks hitting blocks now. It's like, okay, we got the whole sticks hitting blocks. What else can we do?
Yeah, we say it all the time. Shooters and rhythm games and also hack and slash. It's like if you're making a game that's based off of either any of those three gameplay elements, at this point, you have to be really unique.
Bring something original to it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of shooters, there's a lot of hack and slash, and there's a lot of rhythm games in VR. But how about yourself, Jasmine? What do you typically enjoy for genres?
Man, me and Adam are so similar. It's weird. But I would actually say my order is a little bit different. I would say, like, I love rhythm games, and I think that's still probably my top thing. I don't know if y'all knew this, but I used to, back when I streamed Beat Saber on Twitch, I was, ranked in the top 3% of Beat Saber players around the world. It was very competitive, so... And I did grow up playing Dance Dance Revolution as well. So rhythm is just in my heart. But outside of that, I really, I love these. Man, have you guys ever played Wanderer? The one where it's like time traveling through space. It's like an adventure, or time traveling through the world and solving different puzzles to be able to unlock different things in other time frames of the world.
I haven't played that one yet because it's PC VR only. Correct? I don't believe it's standalone on the MetaQuest.
It's launching on the MetaQuest, yeah.
It's going to be on the PSVR 2 soon. I'm shooting myself because that's one that I've really wanted to play because I love story games, but I haven't yet. And so, don't judge me too harshly. I've heard of it, yes, and I definitely need to play it.
Yeah, I see videos of people visiting Woodstock and stuff. It looks so good, but unfortunately, because it's not standalone yet, I haven't been able to experience it yet.
Yeah, so I love those games that are anything that feels surreal a little bit. I love Red Matter, Wanderer, and yeah, those kind of things. And then I would say the survival element. I did also Garden of the Sea, which isn't really a survival type game, but it is, crafting. So I was actually thinking about how I've been enjoying Galactic Catch a lot lately, which I didn't expect to enjoy, but I think it gives me the a little bit of Animal Crossing vibes, where you just you just hang out, you collect fish, you go build.
There's no rush.
Yeah, and I did not expect to like this game this as much as I have, but I think those are the three. And so as you see, there's no FPS in there or hack and slash.
Oh, Song in the Smoke. That was the game I was thinking of.
There we go.
I thought that's what it was, and I'm I cannot for the life of me. I almost looked in my phone because I had a feeling I knew what it was.
I think that they have some of the best cover art too on the Quest too. Last I looked, it says caveman simulator experience or something like that in a sub headline on the cover art, and that just looks so good. For survival games, we've been having a blast with Survival Nation because it's got really interesting co-op elements. In the sense that the entire game, from start to finish, the opening seconds of the tutorial, you can do co-op. It's like the entire
Nice.
game is up to 4 players.
That's
And it
awesome.
saves your progress on your character. So then if you join a different server, it's still like your save, just in a world. So you both are kind of playing the game single player, but together. Like you
yeah.
obviously can fight enemies together, but all of your progress is locked to just your character. It's not like you share quests and stuff, but it's got
That's
some really
good.
cool crafting elements, some survival elements with your health, and you can be poisoned and stuff like that. But there's a game coming out from Combat Waffle Studios, the same people that make Ghost of Tabor, called Grim VR. That is pretty much Rust in VR, and I am so freaking excited for that.
That I think is going to have all the elements I'm looking for
Yeah.
for current survival game,
So if you're a survival fan, I think when Grim VR comes out, you're going to have some issues.
especially on PC.
Yeah. I think they're aiming for like 100 people, something like that. I don't think it'll be able to do that standalone, but
No,
for survival fans, I think that game is going to rock the house. That game's going to be amazing.
I love survival
We'll
games.
see. I'm always gonna be skeptical until proven.
Yeah.
And I'm with you on rhythm games. I still play Beat Saber.
Mm-hmm.
And I love
Classic.
just pumping on, like going online and playing random people. I don't care, what level it is. I'll do the hard. But when you win in Beat Saber, it's or like you're winning because you see your big character up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good feeling.
Yes. So kind of on that, you've referenced
No, I
PSVR.
wasn't top 3% by any means.
Not even close. I'll be lucky to complete anything above easy.
I win a
without
lot though.
failing.
But I know that I'm not top 3% in the world.
Yeah, I don't dislike rhythm games. They're not my number one skill genre, meaning if there's a rhythm game with a multiplayer feature, he's ranking higher than me 100% of the time. I think I beat you one time ever on one song on Ragnarok,
Yeah.
and that's about it. I'm not too good at rhythm
That's
games.
a good one too. Ragnarok's a
Ragnarok?
great one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not always
They
big
brought
on
a new element to it, so they get the pass.
smash, smash, smash with the heavy metal music versus like the electronic music.
Vikings.
That's a
When you get
nice.
those
Yeah,
bonus
it's a good
push.
mix. They're a good something different because a lot of rhythm games do the EDM stuff. So for metalheads, it's like, this is really good.
Yeah,
I need to
admittingly,
tell you
Well, that's why I
guys.
think Beat Saber's starting to like soften up to a little harder music.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no like Rage Against the Machine or anything yet.
There
But
was some grunge in there.
Yeah, they did a
going on,
Nirvana
yeah. I
pack,
love
right?
it.
Or
I
at least some Nirvana songs mixed in, I believe.
Yeah. But I need to tell you guys something that's a little bit, it's like something you wouldn't know unless you were so into Beat Saber. But for the people that rank, they actually make custom maps that you would train on. So there would be like maps that would be very, very slow, like blocks. And the whole point of it was to hit the blocks perfectly so you can get a perfect score. There's like the way that the scoring goes, it's up to 115 per like block that you hit. And it counts like the angle that you hit the block at. So it's like, I can't remember the angle exactly, but it's a certain angle that you have to hit it at the beginning. And then the rest of the score goes through your follow through. I think it's like 60 degrees follow through or something. And so there's a map that you would train on. Yep. And there was Beat Saber trainers, like the top ranking people, like you would pay them to do sessions with you. And all they would do is like watch your stream while you're hitting the blocks and tell you how to fix like your grip or your like how you need to fix your form or whatever. And I like, it was so intense. It was definitely like a proper sport. And I still think that there should be some sort of like Beat Saber Olympics going around where you can watch people live, because people that are really good, I think, are incredible to see live. It's like not human. But anyway, so it takes
Beat
a
Saber
lot
is
of effort.
Olympic sport. That would be so cool. And like Beat Saber coaching, like there's all kinds of offshoot, little business ideas you could do with that.
Well,
It
I remember
was
going to
nuts, though.
concerts in the mid 2000s and like Guitar Hero was blowing up and they would have like Guitar Hero
love
competitions
Guitar Hero.
mid concert and stuff. I think that there's a demand for it. It just takes the proper marketing and the proper push for it. But I think definitely people would enjoy it. The viewership's there. It's just nobody's doing it.
The problem with the creators that post nothing but the Beat Saber videos, and they'll do it on like, ridiculously hard, is they make it look too easy. That's my only beef with those videos. There's no
Casual.
struggle. Oh yeah, wearing a dress, all cute, like you're going to church on Sunday and just sitting there whooping. No sweat. I play Beat Saber for 10 minutes. I'm sweating, But those videos, they seem to do all right.
Yeah, definitely there's a market for it. Just nobody's pushing it like that. But I think VR esports,
Wearing a costume, dude, and playing Beat Saber and not getting a sweat. I just don't get it.
VR esports has different potential than flat screen esports because you're actually moving, you're physical with it. So there's much more of the quote unquote sport element
It's more than just a thumb.
Than flat, which not to crap on anybody doing, high level competitive flat screen gaming. Definitely it's something I'm not able to do, but it's cool to see it in VR because like I said, there's that athletic aspect to it as well that doesn't exist in flat screen esports.
All these yoked
like
Beat Saber teams.
The Veil tournament that they had, that was really cool to see in person because everybody was up on stage. You could actually see them with with their mounts. Like it was really cool. I don't know. And then they had a great job with all of the screens that they had in the background, different spectator experiences. Like that was fun to see. Like I'm not a big esports person, and maybe it is because you just see them kind of sitting behind a computer looking very serious or yelling at their teammates, which again, fine, but having them up on stage and getting to see, them actually turn and stuff is really cool. So I hope we need more. We need more.
Yeah,
Jazz, make it happen.
Right. We need.
Right. This is just making me think of League of Legends. I'm like, oh man, I want to play. That's all I'm thinking right now.
Well, when we went to PAX East, they had a big esports stage.
They did a really good job with pumping out the energy. Phenomenal sound system.
Yeah, and they had an on-screen or like an on-stage host, like you said, being the hype man, really pumping everybody up. They had the big screen so you could see everybody's footage. I think it was Apex Legends they were playing. And all I could think is imagine that same setup, but with a VR game.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it would be so much more visually appealing.
I think you'll see more of that in 24.
I hope so, because I think VR is an even better spectator sport than flat screen gaming.
It's animated.
Yeah.
People trip and fall sometimes when they play VR. So theoretically, anything could happen while you're playing.
What I wondered, oh, go ahead, Jazz.
I was going to say, if there's any investors who want to make this dream happen, hit us up. Let's see what we could do.
I've wanted to ask some of the Veil players this, but while they're up on stage, I wonder if it helps with stage fright too, because you've got the headset on, so you kind of like put blinders to the I'm sure you could hear them. Well, actually, they had some pretty hardcore noise canceling headphones on, so maybe not. But I wonder if that would help with your stage fright too, because you just just can't see them. You're just in your element. So I'm like, that'd be so cool.
Wearing sunglasses.
Yeah. I think you guys have done some convention work with Impact Reality, right? I've seen some pictures of you guys at conferences, or is that mostly Skiva doing it independently?
No, we've gone to conventions, but we mostly walk around and see what's going on. We haven't had like a booth or anything.
Okay. I think there's, when we went to bring up PAX East
that'd
again.
Be nice to see a booth at the conventions, yes.
Yeah, I think we had there was a total of 6 or 7 VR booths at PAX East. So not a crazy number, but each one of them was just a huge line. People were leaving them talking so highly about VR, which granted they got to try Peaky Blinders and Demio and some real good ones, but you could see how all right, maybe it was different with cardboard VR and cell phones, but the consumer masses, when they try VR at this point, they're much more sold on it than not. So I think it's cool to see, some convention work. And even if it's not a booth yet, laying the seeds, because I think that there's a lot that can be done with promoting VR in those type of environments for sure. But, you two are both definitely OGs in the VR content creation, been around for more than a couple of years. So something I got to ask is, at this point in time, what headsets do you two mainly use for, hey, it's one thing to do work, but now you're looking to game yourself. What do you mostly play on? An Index, PSVR 2, the Quest 2, maybe a Quest 3 that nobody knows about,
I wish. Shh, no, just kidding. It's a mix. So for me, my daily driver, weirdly enough, is the Quest 2, just because I play Supernatural. So not like hardcore games, but I play Supernatural a lot. And I've been doing Nountown, which is the language learning app.
You're so cute.
But when it comes to like content or games that aren't, I guess, more casual, then I still have my Valve Index, which one day I'd like to maybe get the big screen VR headset, but we'll see. I don't know. So between those two, I would say, although more loyally the Quest 2. I don't know if I'm slightly ashamed to say that.
My main headset right now is my Quest Pro. It's been great. Love it. The only problem is I'm dying to have full body tracking. I think I really need it, especially with the Stand Stash game. I'm losing my mind. It's like if you took Beat Saber and you mix it with DDR and you put it in VR, it's the holy grail. But I need full body tracking, and it's really hard to get with a standalone headset. So I also need the big screen. If anyone from Big Screen's listening.
As somebody without PC VR, we referenced it before, we only use our Quest 2. We're standalone VR only. Man, the big screen VR headset. Mm-hmm. If I had a good enough PC for it.
Oh, yeah, no brainer.
That one is tempting just conceptually, just to be so light and sleek, lighter than my iPhone. It's like, how do I not want to try that? Fit, especially for your face. That sounds like a really, really good headset.
I think a lot of people who have their Valve indexes like me too are just kind of like, okay, what's next? You know, I like there's always upgrades to the standalones now. You've got Quest 2, Quest 3, the Quest Pro, there's Pico, all sorts of different types of standalone, but it's only certain, you don't have a lot of really good PC VR headsets that are meant for like gamers. I mean, I guess you have like Pimax, but they're kind of still niche-ish, so we're just waiting for our next, Valve Index upgrade. Maybe it's big screen. I don't know.
It is definitely cool to hear, when we first got into VR content creation, I'd followed the VR industry for years, but didn't have a PC VR ready computer, so I was definitely an outside spectator until the Quest line comes around. Then standalone VR is much more approachable. So I've always been the Quest 2 guy. I love my Quest 2. I love standalone VR. Of course, better graphics are better, but I don't need that always for immersion. And the graphics in a lot of standalone games have gotten so good. You reference like Red Matter 2. It's insane. Or Hubris. It's amazing what or even I Expect You to Die 3. All of the I Expect You to Die series have great graphics on the Quest. So I've always loved the standalone VR side for sure. It's amazing how far it's come. But I remember when we first got into it, there was much more of an attitude from people that had been in VR for a while of screw that headset. It's worsening the industry of VR.
Yeah.
There's no more good PC VR headsets, because of stuff like that. And I always loved my standalone headset. So I was always like, whoa, that's a little gatekeeper, a little put off, but it's cool to see. I don't think I really see anybody still of like the major, VR content creators really hard on standalone VR in the same way I saw, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago when we first started. It seems like everybody at this point is like, all right, the Quest 2 is pretty good.
Yeah, there's just different categories for everyone. If you're kind of, really hardcore, you've always been a hardcore PC gamer, go PC VR. If you're kind of more, if you like more portable, no wires, a little bit, I want to say casual, but you don't have to be that casual, go something like the Quest. Or if you've got a PlayStation 5, and you kind of want the hardcore graphics, but you don't want to spend, maybe as much as a PC VR setup with the lighthouses and crap, go PSVR 2. So I like that there's different sort of systems now. There's kind of something for everybody. What are you looking for? There's probably something for you if you're willing to spend a little bit.
Yeah, and if you're really wealthy, you can get the Apple Vision Pro.
Yeah.
But what's cool is it doesn't seem like that there's so much of camps anymore. It doesn't seem like the standalone crowd talks crap about the PC VR crowd. Doesn't seem like the PC VR crowd really talks crap about the standalone crowd. Same with PSVR. It seems like things are much more in unison in the industry than it seems like it was when the Quest first started to blow up.
When everyone knows you've sold over 20 million headsets.
I guess it's hard to argue still.
Yeah. The food chain changes a little.
But I agree with you. I love that there's also the path for people that want the more high-end VR. Like, that's the importance of having headsets like Big Screen VR, or if Valve is ever going to put out another headset or something like that. It's very important that those sides of the industry exist too, because for every person that's like me and goes, well, I can only afford standalone VR, there are people that they have the spending money, and there's nothing wrong with it either. And like, hey, I'm willing to spend a little bit extra on a better experience. Can that experience exist, please? So I agree. I think it's very important for all these sides of the market to exist. So that's awesome. And So you said you got started at Live in 2017, you said?
I think so. Like it's about 2.5, about 3 years ago. And they found me through my content pretty much because I kept putting out tutorials for all of the different offerings they had, like mixed reality, avatars for VTubers, and a streamer kit to be able to read chat in your headset. And then eventually I saw they had an application that they were looking for a community manager. And being completely honest, I was like, well, I've done the content creation thing. You know, I've worked on my own socials. I've made an LLC of my own brand. Like, I don't have any formal community management experience, but screw it. I'm going to apply and see what happens. And, you know, just somehow they chose me. And then I've been with the company and, you know, I've changed positions a bit, but yeah, it's crazy. That's why I always tell people, like, even if you're not sure if you technically fit all the boxes that they're looking for, like, just apply anyway, because what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to maybe say no, or in most cases they'll probably say nothing at all, but you'll literally still be in the same place that you were, no worse off, you know? So just try all the things, just go for them.
No, that's great advice, and I loved
If you don't try, you never know. I agree. If the worst that can happen is you're ghosted, or they say, you know, hey, we respectfully, you know, I got turned down for one of them, and it was the best turn down letter. I was like, oh, I actually feel good about not getting the job.
Thank you for not hiring me.
Yeah, you guys are the best.
Hey, you didn't
I'll try again later.
Just ignore me. And I love even what Jasmine said earlier, is like, hey, I was only making 300 at the time that I made the leap. And I think that's important for people to hear. It's even something, you know, we talk about a lot of, oh, I'd love to one day go full time. I think sometimes there's hesitancy of like, you have to have everything checked off and everything needs to be perfect before you make a leap, but that's not really how life works. So I think that's great to hear too. And if I remember correctly, it sounded like both of you had done a little bit of content creation flat screen before going into the VR side. Do you still, each of you still play flat screen games? Like I know Jasmine mentioned, you know, craving some League of Legends. You know, what's your gaming look like? Is it primarily VR, or are you still pretty split, you know, flat screen and VR?
Well, for me, like I've been a very bad VR person lately. So my VR, like I said, has mostly been like just the daily drivers, Supernatural, Downtown, just like stuff to help me better myself in a more fun way than it would be doing stuff on a flat screen. But I had to eventually force myself to figure out how to stop working, because I felt like, you know, Monday through Sunday, it's just like, if I don't have a stopping point, I will just keep finding something that I can work on, something that I can learn. And so luckily, you know, with my husband and I've got another really close friend, we've got our 4:00 gaming times. And because there's other people waiting on me, it forces me to stop. So usually we're playing something like at least 4 days a week. And a lot of times that's been Diablo, but we'll switch to like something fun like Power Wash Simulator, or maybe we'll play some Demio or Walkabout, you know, a lot depending on our mood. So I will play like flat screen gaming is still definitely a big part of what I do. Like Palia, there's a cute free like a cozy MMO that's come out recently that I've been really getting into. So fun. Yeah, I was gonna say that'd be Palia, Palia. Yeah, it's a completely free, super cozy, sweet flat screen. Very Animal Crossing-ish, but yeah. So I still flat screen gaming. I'm not one of those VR people that's like, oh, I can't go back to flat screen at all. Like I just can't. I love both. I can love both. There's just so many different options that you can, you know, go to for all the genres.
Awesome.
So for me, I hardly do PC, like, you know, flat screen gaming anymore. I don't even know if this counts as flat screen gaming, honestly. But the only ones that I do pretty much now that's not in VR is on my phone, like mobile games. And it's mostly because, you know, like you're just so tired sometimes. You just kind of want to like zone out a little bit without putting any effort. So it's the same as like watching TV or like scrolling on TikTok or something. Sometimes I just want to play mobile games. I've been playing Hearthstone and Candy Crush.
No shame.
I've been playing that for freaking. I'm level like 2,000 something now. It's stupid.
It's gonna be the #1 app on the Apple Vision Pro. I'm telling you, Candy Crush Saga is gonna dominate it in VR.
The $4,000 Candy Crush.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna have the big flat screen overlay of it, and it's gonna be the most popular app in VR on the Apple App Store, guaranteed.
Good God.
So nothing wrong with mobile games too, you know, and
No,
and
they're
I know
easy to get latched onto because they're right in your freaking hand whenever you want. So
and you definitely still play more flat screen than I do. I know you're firing it up quite a bit. I laughed when
Every
you
night.
said, yeah, I laughed when you said Power Wash Simulator because that's definitely one of
my
his
jam.
favorites. So I know you're.
So funny.
then I did Lawnmower Simulator.
Yeah, if it says simulator on it, he's probably buying it. Sometimes those
That is
games,
so funny.
but all of them work, I think, really good for VR. So I can't wait to see End Dreams finally release the VR version.
I'll
of
sit on
Power
a
Wash.
lawnmower for 3 hours, just cutting
Yeah, can
lawn.
you take a video of your dad doing that?
I can always
Guess
tell him,
what
you know,
my
hey, I
dad's
got a
doing.
lawn at my house. I need mowing. If you want to
Right.
do the in real life lawnmower simulator too.
Looks
But
like
I
you
think-
Doesn't
picked
get
this one up.
more real than that.
Yeah, you can even get the
Throw some dirt in the face.
yeah, you can get some green on your skin if it hits you. You know, it's all the good stuff. But I think Power Wash Simulator is going to be a hit in VR when it releases.
If it's full scope to like,
like 1-to-1 port, like the same content.
yeah, but to scale, yeah, then it'll be friggin' wicked good. Because the stuff you clean, it's not like, you know, other than a car, and I think there's a boat, even a boat.
Like a subway station.
Yeah, the
There's like a
subway
mini golf
station,
course.
The friggin' treehouse
Fun.
that's ginormous.
Yeah, when
So
they
if
put
it's
that
to
out,
scale, it's going to be awesome.
yeah, I'm probably
Everyone's
not going
gonna
to hear
have
from
such
you.
buff arms because like instead of, you know, when you're on a flat screen, you're like resting, but I guess if you're in VR, you're just gonna be like
Oh,
this.
yeah,
the
you're
whole
going to
time.
be spraying,
So we're all gonna be super buff. You're gonna know who's the Power Wash Simulator players for sure.
squatting down to get under the benches in the subway.
Well, it's got such a cult following in flat screen. And I think any one of those simulators that's two hands with the first person view is obviously going to work phenomenal in VR, including, you know, jokes aside, lawnmower sim and stuff like that. So
Farming sim will be the that'll be
that
it
would
for
be
me,
so fun.
right?
So-
All the different tractors.
there's so many games and genres that I feel
It's not even funny.
are still neglected in VR. One of those being those first person simulators. Something
Yeah.
I talk about so much. Our listeners are probably so annoyed of me saying it, but board games for one,
Oh, here we
even
go.
just the
Gosh,
classic
yes.
board games, and something I'll die on the hill of. I love top down strategy games in VR. You know, games like Per Aspera, Deism,
Ironheart?
Eternal Starlight. They work really good in VR. So I would love to see something like Civilization in VR. But
They just need, what is it? There's that one arcade game that they have all the rights to a bunch of different actual arcade games. So that's how
Arcade
they're
Legend?
able to get Arcade Legend. Yeah, so they need a board game version of that. Some company that has the
Hasbro.
rights to all of these.
we just need
Okay.
Hasbro to make a VR game.
Get them. There we go. Get them in VR.
Make the game of life. Imagine the game of life in VR.
Yeah, we've said that for years now.
Or I get it, Monopoly is a super long game, but there's expedited mobile versions of Monopoly that exist for, you know, quick flat screen gaming that I think could work really good in VR. And again, Civilization, these top down grand strategy games, nobody wants to touch them from the developer side, from my understanding of talking with developers, because it hasn't been done yet. You know, so that always breaks my heart of it hasn't been done yet. Shouldn't be the
Watch.
reason.
It'll be like Combat Waffle that does it. you know,
Yeah.
just because no one else has.
Well, that's a great example. Nobody had done Tarkov in VR, and if you went to go pitch it before Ghost of Tabor, they would have told you it can't be done. It takes somebody to do it. But again, you look at games like Demio, these top-down board games, and Catan. The VR version of Catan works so good. So board games and grand strategy games, I don't think that we have nearly enough of in VR. You know, there are genres that they're missing, and I think that they're wide open. But for you two, you know, you had mentioned survival games. Is there any genres or even a 1-to-1 port of a specific game or series that you would love to see in VR that hasn't been done yet?
I want to see. I don't even know if we have really great games anymore with these. And I guess Primal Hunt might be the only one, but I want to see more dinosaurs in VR and not janky like 2017 Steam VR dinosaurs where it's like just really bad. But I'm thinking like since like Turok, like even on the flat screen side, we haven't really seen any good dinosaur games in general either. So I don't really know what to expect there, but I feel like there's so much potential to have, you know, maybe it's just animating them. I don't know what the difficulty is because we don't see, there are some like VR hunting games, but we don't see a lot of games.
That's another
with,
one
like,
though.
Real
Hunting?
animals, you know? So I don't know. I'm just a huge dino nerd, so I want to see more dinosaurs in a setting that's not like museum in VR or janky dinosaur simulator 2017 VR.
Well, with VR, you can take advantage of scale. So it's like, of course, there's many, human-sized dinosaurs, but you get a massive dinosaur that hits bigger in VR than it does flat screen. You're like,
yeah.
It's like seeing Darth Vader the first time in Vader Immortal, and he's taller than you, and it's the scales there. It's different. So yeah, I agree. I think dinosaurs.
You think he was taller than Skiva?
Yeah, it's scaled to your load-in height, unless Skiva unless Skiva was tall enough to break it. Yeah. What's up, little boy? What's up, little man? So how about you, Jasmine? Any games or specific series that you would love to see in VR?
Not specifically. So if Adam's like a dino nerd, I'm like a space nerd, and I feel like my heart's pretty full. I don't know if y'all have tried Inner Cosmos 2000.
I did.
It's it's like a pretty realistic VR game where you're trying to pilot like a spaceship and do space missions, and you have to and you're like in a little tiny space shuttle, and you have to do all the throttle and the roll and the pitch and all that stuff, and it's so and trying to like dock perfectly to the ISS and all that stuff. Loved it. Sounds fantastic. It's like it's all my dream come true. I just love space games. That's why I also love Red Matter so much. But yeah, I'm pretty happy. Just pump out more space games. Let's do some. Let's see. Oh my gosh, when you were talking about board games, Terraforming Mars is one of my favorite board games of all time. Throw that into VR. I'll lose my mind.
There's so many great board games that could be like, you're absolutely right though. Like I would love to see more board games in VR, or like live D&D somehow, like Campaign Makers, which I think there was supposed to be something, but I wasn't 100% sure if it was going to be for VR or not. But anyway, like
I know there's one, a D&D one but I think it's PC VR only to start, with like flat screen capabilities too.
Yeah.
I think you really need that standalone audience. Selfishly, I know I'm selfish in saying that, but
Inner Cosmosis, when first time I played that, I had a total misconception of what it was going to be. And then real quickly I was like, oh, they want me to legit know how to do every single freaking thing there is to do this. I get it now.
And is that single player or is it multiplayer?
Single player.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounded like it had potential as like a co-op game trying to communicate with each other.
There's not enough room.
Flip the fucking switch.
Not enough room.
Yeah.
Capsule's pretty small.
And in your spaceship, you have to like monitor like your CO2 levels while you're trying to make sure that you're like in the right orbit for it's so good.
And you got to climb up
it's really hard.
Isn't that the one where you also have to climb up the top sometimes to go up there to do
to like repair your like space shuttle while you're trying to do all the stuff. It's cool. It's
I'm remembering the beginning, and I struggled. I was concerned. Like, I don't know if this is the game for me because the difficulty. Yeah, I didn't. Again, I didn't. Maybe I didn't read the small print, but I was thrown real quick that like, okay, I'm gonna be a real astronaut. I totally understand now.
And besides even space ones, Red Matter is 1 and 2, both one of the best storyline games. The gameplay in it, the little not hidden, but the puzzles that you have to do to complete the game, they're so good. And graphically, it's on a whole different level, especially with the space aesthetic. So Red Matter 2 is so good. Have you ever played Call of the Sea? It's made by one of the developers was from the team of Red Matter and left and made their studio. That game is so good too.
We actually had her on as our first guest, right? Our first one. Yeah. And so that was
so good.
It was a really good game. That gives an example of like, hey, as long as you have a stylized look, you don't have to have the most realistic graphics on the Quest. Like if you have a very specific style to your game, that can still be beautiful. And that's what I could appreciate about that game is it's like, it was, I don't want to call it cartoony, but I feel like that's the best way of translating it for someone to understand is like, those kind of graphics work really well for the Quest. You don't have to be, Battlefield, Call of Duty realism on the Quest. And please don't, because it's going to look like crap. But when you have a good style, a very, whether that's cel-shaded or cartoony or, I don't know, I'm very bad at technical arts. I'm sure people are screaming at me somewhere for describing these, but it works,
The art style reminds me of like the movie Anastasia. Do you remember that? Or not Disney, but that princess movie, Anastasia. Yeah. And it's nice. Like sometimes you want to be in like a cute little movie-esque that's animated.
Yeah, it's very playful scenery for sure. You're not going to get like anxiety or nervous or anything like that in that game. Just frustrated because the puzzles are freaking hard. But they have
the hints.
Yes, I was going to say that.
So nice.
No, that game's great. And even when we were playing it, we were like, this almost feels a little bit like a Red Matter game, not in space. So when she said that she was from the team of Red Matter, we lit up so fast.
2 and 2 ended up real quick.
Yeah, it was like you can see it. Obviously it's not the same space aesthetic, but in the gameplay elements and the puzzle solving, you could definitely see the experience carrying over into it. Yeah, that's a game that I haven't seen get the love it deserves.
No. It flies under the... they could change that by...
Going with Impact Reality.
Award winner, soon to be for...
Because that's it's a really good story-based game. Pretty much everything that's
put together well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good experience, and
you look
I agree with the graphics. They don't have to be over the top to make it... And I've never been to the games that use the cell shading, cartoony. Never been a fan of that in my life in flat screen. Don't even want to play it. Don't pitch it to me. But for some reason, it works good in VR. I don't know why.
Like the highest rated game on the store, We Are One. Yeah. That's a cell shaded game. And I agree. I was very anti cell shaded. I didn't even know what the name of cell shaded was.
We called it the cartoony thing.
Yeah, with the thick lines.
The cartoony graphics. They kind of got like comic book style.
Yeah.
Oh, good. You guys are worse than I am then.
Yeah.
Someone corrected us.
Yeah. That's the benefit of the Discord communities. There's always somebody that knows, and they're like, just so you know going forward, that's called cell shaded. I go, noted. Not a fan of cell shaded.
Yeah.
But it works better in VR, I agree, than it does flat screen. So great stuff. And, we've kind of talked a lot about you two individually, but do you want to tell us a little bit about how you two met up to start a podcast and, your podcast VR and all that jazz, which is a great name. Both of you named Jasmine. It's very catchy. But yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I'll probably give this more to Jazz since she was the one who initially reached out to me. But I think I know at a couple of different in-person events we had been to, there were always discussions of like, damn it, there needs to be like a woman-focused podcast. And at least for me personally, I was like, oh, Jesus, like there's already so much stuff that I'm involved in. Like I would love to, if someone else were to start it and then I could help contribute to it. Because I didn't know if I had the bandwidth to be able to start something new from scratch. But then I'll let Jazz take over because she was the one who really like got it off the grounds.
It was really funny. Like I said, so Adam and I met through the VR industry, but we've met so many times at all these conventions throughout the years. Okay, so throughout the years, we met at all these conventions, unintentionally just ran into each other. It's like, oh, you're here. It's like she's always at every single event. And, there's always the after parties that happen too. And every time when we're, having a beer or something, it's like, someone really needs to do this. Yes, someone really needs to do this. And we would both say the same thing over and over. And it happened for at least 6 months, every month or so when we'd see each other in other events. Yeah, someone needs to do this.
Someone.
And I always thought it was going to be, I thought it was you. I was waiting for you.
I don't have enough bandwidth. I don't even know how you have enough. I mean, you've got a whole company. So I was like, I don't know if you're the best person to do this either, but I guess we got to do this.
It was so funny. But eventually, I put up a poll on my YouTube channel and I was like, hey, what kind of, live streams do you want to see me do? Do you want me to do more like chatting about the VR stuff, or do you want me to do gameplay? And it was pretty 50-50, which made me think, oh shoot, I guess I should really do one where I'm just talking about my thoughts and stuff. And then I asked Adam, because I was like, well, if I'm gonna do something, it should be different from what's out there. And so we really wanted one that was highlighting just the ladies in the space, making it I don't know, what do you want to say about it, Adam?
Yeah, it's because there's a ton of women in VR, and we're appreciative. Like no shade to any of the other podcasts out there, you guys included, but we wanted to really be able to highlight some of the total badasses that we found out there. And literally we have a spreadsheet, so we only do because we're both really crazy busy, we only do the podcast for now like once a month. And we try to have a guest on, but like I'm not even kidding. The spreadsheet of potential guests that we have is crazy, and then we're always adding people that aren't even on the spreadsheet. Just so it's gonna be a long time before we ever run out of female VR, either content creators or industry guests. But I don't know. My hopes for this, and hopefully it's coming out in the podcast, is that we are kind of the more like a fun podcast, but also want to just highlight the awesome women in the industry who sometimes don't get enough love, or we hear they're just super inspirational in the stories that they tell us, and various things that they've faced in their careers, because a lot of the times they'll have more experience than us, or maybe even our viewers. So I would almost say it's like kind of our guests are a little businessy. So if you're like looking to get into the industry, whether that's with marketing or CEO or what have you, a lot of them are just good general advice givers because they've gone through a lot of stuff to get to where they are. So that's where I get the most out of those interviews, is just advice and or someone to relate to in some cases.
Yeah. The other things too. Okay, so this just happened. But to give a little bit more perspective on why I guess our podcast is a little bit more unique. So Resolution Games reached out to us and said, hey, do you want, Paul Brady, who's like the CEO of Resolution Games, to be on your podcast? And I had to say, I love Paul. I freaking love him. I've met him several times, and I know he'd be a really great a really great guest. But we need, we only do like ladies at the moment, at least. So I was like, you have to find someone else, maybe someone who doesn't usually appear on podcasts, maybe someone that's like, really in there working on things, but just doesn't get enough visibility, just because usually you'll go to, the CEO or whoever. And yeah, so that's maybe shedding a little bit of a different perspective on a lot of the stuff that we've seen.
No, that's awesome. I think it's great for there to be.
I don't think there's anything wrong with someone being an advocate for women in the industry. And we know firsthand 2 years ago when we started actually doing interviews, we were like, oh, why are we not seeing like, an abundance of
female developers,
women developers? So we put the word out. I mean, you went to some social groups.
And we've had quite a bit of female developers on at this point in time.
Since then. But I'm saying like, so it seemed like there wasn't a voice and there wasn't the avenue. So, I mean, we've been blessed that we've had a handful of powerhouses too, with some really, really phenomenal like life stories that tied into their end game, which is what they're doing now.
But I agree. I think there's the market for it. I think there's the need for it too, especially in something like VR and gaming industry in specific. So I think that's awesome that you guys are doing that. And how many episodes in are you so far? I believe 3, right?
4.
4?
We just finished our 4th episode this week. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
Pretty early. I know we've been doing it just once a month, so it takes so long to get to the next one. By the time the next one comes around, we're like, oh my gosh, we have so many things to talk about. It's great though, right? The VR industry is moving so fast that there's always so many things to talk about.
And who have you had on so far in those first 4, in case any of our listeners want to go check it out?
If we're allowed to know the 4th.
Yeah, if the 4th is out
when it's coming out.
Yeah.
So the first episode was Jasmine or Adam. So it was introducing the co-host. Second episode was with Tatiana Delgado for with Out of the Blue Games, Call of the Sea. The third one was Ashley Huffman, who's like a co-founder of Titan Haptics. And you might not know what Titan Haptics is, but they're like one of the top haptic companies, and they're in a lot of VR headsets, VR accessories, gaming accessories, etc. So she is amazing. And then
badass.
Yeah. And the most recent one we had, Adam.
Oh yeah, that one we had Marine Fan, who, oh my god, like her resume is intense. She is with Baobab Studios, so they do VR films, but they've also done Galactic Catch, but she's worked with like Roblox, Quest, I want to say Netflix, one of Disney Plus, yeah, like several of the streaming, just all of the things. So I was like, I have so many questions just because I wanted to figure out how her resume worked. There's just like so much to put together. So and really, really fun, really awesome people. And we've been really grateful to have them on and more in the future.
Yeah, like you said, a whole spreadsheet full. So I'm excited to see who else you have in the books. There's definitely I think a ton of great episodes to come in the future. And if anybody wants to check it out, is available just on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere podcasts are enjoyed. Where can somebody find VR and all that jazz?
Yep, it's on YouTube and all the stuff that you said.
Yeah, all the major podcast directors.
It's everywhere.
Yeah,
just type
so
in
far,
all
all of the above.
The live streams are on VR with Jasmine's channel, but we might eventually, if we have like a season end, we might migrate it to its own YouTube channel. You know, we'll do the whole website thing just so we have everything. But that's not yet. That's more like in the future, probably plans once we have time.
And what's your thoughts on podcasting being, 4 episodes in versus, short or medium length form content? What's it like doing now the opposite, long form content? What's your thoughts on it?
God, at least for me, because I just haven't had as much time to be able to do like YouTube stuff or TikTok stuff. This, honestly, I'm grateful for it because it gives me a way to still feel like I'm participating in the community somehow through the podcast versus having to make my own content. And I for me, I feel like it's a little easier because when it's my stuff, I don't want to. I mean, I do want to promote it, but I feel more proud when I'm part of a team. Like if I'm working with Jazz or even with Liv or F Reality, whatever, I feel more like because there's more people behind it, I want to promote it more versus like, here's my cool video TikTok or whatever. Yay, I'm awesome. It's like, no, look at the stuff we did. Like this shit's cool. So I don't know. It's a different mindset. I think it's been healthier for me to still feel like I can be a part of things without having to make as much content more. Because I don't have time, but I'll let Jazz go.
That's so sweet, Adam. You're so pure. For me, I've really enjoyed it. I think it's sometimes my mouth goes faster, or no, my brain goes faster than my mouth. And so I get stuck a little bit. And so then I just go, Adam.
I can usually make up some crap.
That's so good. But I do enjoy it. I think it's so much fun. Like the last episode we had was amazing. And I don't ever do interviews on my channel. It's just not what my like content's about. But being able to talk to all these ladies and them telling us like all the things that they've had to go through, the challenges and how they like made it. And it's so inspirational. Literally after every episode, me and Adam are like about to start crying. We're just, wow, you're so incredible. It's really great.
Yeah. Long form content's definitely fun. It doesn't have to be perfect. So like you said, maybe you lose your train of thought.
It's real.
Yeah.
Keep it real.
It's organic. There's been plenty of times I'm talking and like you said, the brain's going faster than the mouth. And then you're thinking about a different subject and you forget where you are.
Elven table tennis, dude.
Yeah. One time we called.
Elven table tennis.
Yeah. No lie.
Yeah.
Through the whole episode too.
Yep.
And then even I think took a moment to go, I don't know why they're calling it that because there's no elves.
Yeah, there's a
It was
problem we
something
have.
so bad.
Start making jokes about the name of something, and then that becomes the real name, and then you say it for 6 months, and then you go, "Shit, is that the name?" So
yeah, we
11 table tennis very easily became Elven table tennis to us, and we were playing Elven Assassin at the time. It was just
so
the recipe for disaster.
11 Assassin.
Yes, 11 Assassin.
11 Assassin. And
somebody commented
Elven
on
table
it.
tennis.
Yeah, in our subreddit, and they're like, Elven table tennis.
We
They're
never
like,
fixed it.
Yeah,
It's still there.
Yeah,
Have fun.
And then like I said, I've like frozen, like you do like the lock up, like shit. What am I talking about? So it's different. It's fun, but I also think that people like to hear that raw aspect to it. The organic aspect to it. And something I enjoy a lot about Impact Reality is there's a lot of VR devs that, in my opinion, get it. Podcasting is its own form of media. It's not going to have the same exact analytics as like a short form video, but there's definitely a big market for VR fans that like to ingest that more long form content. There's some studios that are a little bit slower on it, and they don't really always see the value in podcast marketing and podcast promotion and appearing on podcasts. Whereas other studios, again, double thumbs up. They get it. They love it.
They're all over it.
And something I love about Impact Reality, it's not just, Ruff Talk VR or anything or your podcast. You guys really expand out to working with a good handful of different podcasts. You guys really get it. There's, the short form content makers. You have your TikTok people. You have your YouTube people. Yeah, the podcasts go on YouTube, but it's not the same as a YouTuber. So
Specific. Oh, hell no.
So that's something I actually give Impact Reality a lot of credit for is you guys, you get it. You have your different forms of marketing and they're all very important, I believe. So just wanted to give that compliment there that, you guys, you get it. That's huge.
Can I give a little insight into the thought process there?
Yeah,
I'm sure
absolutely.
You've already
Please.
I'm sure you've already thought about this as like a podcaster, but really like short form content is for very casual people. Sometimes you'll hit the VR audience, sometimes you won't. Like actually most of the times you probably won't. YouTube videos is definitely like, I think the most, if you're clicking on a VR YouTube video, you're probably really into
Like targeted.
Right? Like it's not, yeah, it's not as by chance. And then with podcasts, if you're listening to a podcast that's like 45 to an hour plus long, all about VR, you're a very hardcore, dedicated person. And you're probably the person that's championing the VR industry. And so that's why podcasts, especially like VR focused ones, are so important, because that if you ever want to just hit exactly the core, like the heart of the community, that's how you get to them, is through the podcasts.
Yeah, I think that you nailed it. You know, I also think that you could make the same argument with, and I'm not going to say that any other avenue isn't influential, or that's not what I'm trying to say, because the raw amount of numbers that they get is so great that it makes up for it. But I'd even argue like the shorter form the content, the less quote unquote influential it has. Like the less likely there's going to be a call to action taken on it versus, you know, then YouTube. I don't think it's as influential as podcasting, you know, as high of a percentage taking the action to it, but it's much more likely than short form, you know, TikTok or YouTube short content. Like YouTubers, I think, can get really good engagement and really good, you know, I guess people, like I said, people taking advantage of a call to action to it. But I think podcasting, it has a lower, you know, total number of views and everything like that in comparison to like a popular YouTube video. But the percentage of the listeners and followers there that will take action and be influenced by the listener, I think, is the highest percentage of the three. Mm-hmm. So YouTube's like a nice middle where it's, you get good.
Well, there's statistics to back
It's like a funnel, right? It's like a funnel. So you've got, you know, the biggest side is your short form content that's not really targeted towards anyone, but you're going to probably hit a large amount of people, and YouTube in the middle. But then you've got the small part. We've got the hardcore, dedicated, but you know, smaller numbers overall. So it's interesting. I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think the term you're looking for specifically is the conversion rate. So it's not necessarily like the influence, but the conversion rate of people that are listening that will convert to doing whatever the action is a lot higher with podcasters, because like literally all the audience that's listening to you are the people that are like, yes, this is what I was looking for. This is exactly what I was seeking. So
yeah, I think conversion rate's a much better technical term than
we had $1 for any time we've been messaged to say, hey, just so you know, I bought that game because of you.
Yeah.
I bought this because of you.
And that's always cool to hear.
You know?
And that's always cool to hear. And, you know, we never really review games that we don't like. You know, we don't want to be the reviewer that's just crapping on stuff. Games. If it's so bad that I'm going to crap on it, I'm not going to
make art sucks, I'm not looking at it.
I'm not going to make a review about it, though, to then go crap on, you know, somebody's hard work, because maybe somebody else does love it. It just wasn't my cup of tea. So it's
not our genre.
No, we tend to try to only, you know, elevate stuff up. But yeah, no, definitely conversion rate's a better metric name than influence. You could even hear me not liking it. I was like trying to defend, like, nobody get offended with you saying that you don't have influence or because you're a short form maker if you're a TikToker. That's not what I'm saying. But yeah, no, definitely that conversion rate, that it makes sense.
Yeah, especially from the latest, what was it, like 60-something% of people.
Yeah, there's some nice studies to back it up too. And the reason I give compliments on that is, like, you'd be surprised. There's even some bigger companies or bigger studios that aren't as on the ball with that. You know, I've even had conversations with, you know, like Meta, where they're like, yeah, we don't really focus too much on podcasting. It's
no way.
Mainly,
I didn't figure that out.
And it's like, ooh, I get it, because again, that YouTube is that sweet middle, but I think it's important to hit all three. And it's like
it's a growing area.
And that's why, you know, you have a new upcoming, you know, PR and marketing firm like Impact Reality out for less than a year, and they're already nominated for rewards, because you get those aspects. You understand that. And that's something that not even all big companies, you know, really, really seem to get properly. So huge props to you all with Impact Reality. I think that the reason that you're being nominated, the reason that the results are good, is because the effort you put in. It's clear you guys get it.
They know the market.
Yeah, clearly. So huge props there. Adam, you know, great work with live and live streaming. That's awesome that you were able to take something that you saw a hole in the market of, you know, hey, there's definitely other people struggling with the same issues I am, and nobody's making videos. How about, you know, that becomes me. you're able to turn that into a career, that's awesome. So huge props to you, Jasmine, with Impact Reality. You guys are on the ball. You guys get it. You guys are only going to keep blowing up. And I love to hear stories like Adam's that, able to take content creation as a hobby, something you did for genuine fun, and turned it into a career. That's awesome. So that was a great podcast to have with both of you. I think 2 great stories, and I think you two are the 2 perfect people for a podcast like yours that's centered around, the badass woman in the industry. So huge props to you for taking that jump and saying, you know what, if nobody else is going to do it, unfortunately, we don't have the time, but it's got to be us. And then, Dad, before we let him go, is there anything that you want to ask them that we didn't go over yet today?
Yeah, but it'll be too lengthy to get into, but I'll do the buttering up for a return visit, but I really want to talk to Jasmine about robotics.
Yeah, you got quite the...
It was thrown in there in the intro, and I made note of it 3 times because I didn't want to let it go. So I'm just going to put it out there that if you feel like returning, and we can touch base on just how deep into robotics you actually got, and whether or not you're still doing it.
It's my understanding that Jasmine doesn't talk about it often, but she has quite a more prestigious tech background than she led on in the beginning. That's my impression.
Wonder,
so I definitely think that could make for a whole episode of its own.
So that'd be my only thing. But no, I'm grateful that the both of you took the time out, and you know, time differences and such. It's a little earlier for the both of you than us. But
yeah, we get our nice East Coast time.
I like the energy of their product, so it's exciting, and I was happy that both of you would come on. So,
so I think the podcast is only going to continue to grow. Sorry to cut you off there, Jasmine. Keep going.
I can give like a 1 to 2 sentence, like really brief on that robotics thing. I started off in space robotics, robotic arms that go on satellites to do repairs on stuff. And then I switched to working on Navy aircraft carriers. And on that, I focus more on automating stuff, like automation, even though my job was like mechanical design engineer. And then from there, did manufacturing worked on manufacturing for iPhones at Apple, but focused again on like the robotic side and automation stuff. So that's
the switch.
That's where it is.
Yeah, just a couple things, just the U.S. Navy, doesn't Apple.
Doesn't everyone do this? Come on.
Space.
You can't automate stuff?
Yeah.
Noob.
My goodness. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more we can go into that, but definitely quite the background. And I think that work ethic that you showed then is part of the reason that you're able to have the results now. So hats off to both of you. You two are both crushing it. I think the podcast is going to continue to blow up. And
the energy is good and the stories are good. So,
and if this is how much Impact Reality is kicking ass, 6, 7 months in or 8 months in, however much it's been, wait till another year from now. Maybe you guys can get Grimm and whatever else Combat Waffle Studios is working on as well, because they're pretty much guaranteed success in my books. So thank you both for joining us. Again, you can find their podcast, VR and all that jazz, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple.
Just Google. It'll pop right up.
Yeah, you'll find it. They said they're on the release schedule of once a month. So with episode 4 just coming out recently, I guess you've got some catching up to do
Wednesday.
What was that?
Every third Wednesday of the month.
Every third Wednesday. So you got some catching up to do with 4 episodes to hold you over until the 5th. And then we'll see who else that they get on soon from that spreadsheet. So thank you both for joining us today. For the listeners, be sure to subscribe, rate us 5 stars, subscribe on YouTube, leave us a Apple rating, join our Discord, Patreon, all that fun stuff. And we'll check you out next week. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.